Okay, first of all, I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room.
I'm going to turn now to that new charge for the so-called doomsday mom, Lori Vallow. Already charged in the killing of her two children, she is now being indicted for conspiracy to commit murder.
A violation of Penal Code Section 187 Prene, murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Hello, everyone. This is Lauren, your host of True Crime Headlines, a weekly podcast bringing you this week's biggest headlines in the true crime world. This is week 33 of 2021. And the first headline of this week, Casey Anthony's neighbors want her gone. According to In Touch magazine, Casey Anthony's neighbors want her out. Families are, quote, terrified. Casey Anthony's neighbors in West Palm Beach, Florida want her out of their community, a local exclusively tells In Touch Weekly. It's a nice, tight-knit area, and most of the people that live here are successful professionals with families and young children. I'm terrified of Casey. Everyone I know in my neighborhood is. The insider adds of Anthony, who was famously acquitted of the murder in the 2008 death of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee. Not only has the source seen Casey driving around, but they also saw her in person at my gym, so I immediately canceled my membership because I don't want to be around her. She was wearing a baseball hat and a vest top and was with a 6-foot muscly guy lifting weights, the insider says. She's really scary looking and bulky and muscly. Okay. I don't want to give my last name because I don't want her coming after me. Seems a little extreme to be that afraid of Casey Anthony, but okay. Now, another source has told In Touch for their August 2021 cover story that Casey has been gambling at underground poker games and partying nonstop. Casey goes to these poker parties after dark. A separate insider who played cards with Anthony told In Touch Weekly in an update. She meets up with 6 or 8 of her friends, and they all sit around a table covered in green cloth with cards in their hands and drinking beer. Anthony appears to be a real risk taker and thrill seeker, the source claimed. Poker makes her feel alive, and that's why she likes to gamble. I have no idea where she gets the money from because as far as I know, she doesn't have a proper job. Now, looking at this cover story that I just mentioned, I found some more info on what the top mom has been up to. I heard the PI, private investigation company, that she set up is not successful, the source told In Touch Weekly. Pat made a ton of money from selling the house, so it's possible she's using his money, but she can somehow afford to gamble. Now, by Pat, the source is referring to Casey's lead investigator on her defense team, Patrick McKenna, who has long time maintained Casey Anthony's innocence. Bill Warner, a private investigator from Sarasota, Florida, who's been researching Anthony for years, tells In Touch that Anthony was living with McKenna at a beach house which they very recently sold for $1 million. It looks like they've moved out already, so they're on the move, Warner says. In addition to McKenna, Anthony has some friends who are true to her, Warner adds. It doesn't make any sense. She goes to bars with her head held high like nothing ever happened. She doesn't have any security or anything like that. Never. She likes to argue. She lives for that, he claims. Some of the people she hangs around with are people who are in law enforcement, and some of them are criminals. So Casey Anthony has tried to remain out of the spotlight, but she made headlines for a dispute with a fellow bar-goer and frenemy in South Florida on May 23rd. The verbal argument started between the two women at O'Shea's Irish pub over an ex-boyfriend they were dating at the same time, according to the police report obtained by In Touch. No charges were filed after the incident. Some people react negatively to her and some do not. Warner shares about the responses to Anthony being spotted out and about. Some are friendly towards her because she's still an attractive woman. The guys are all over her because she's good looking. She gets a lot of male attention. They don't care about her past. People seem to have forgotten. Well, we haven't forgotten, Casey. Okay, so this one is coming from Wink News out of Almonte Springs, Florida. This is a tough one. This is the stuff of nightmares, honestly. Police. Florida mother shot, killed by toddler during work video call. A toddler found an unsecured loaded handgun inside an apartment and fatally shot a woman while she was on a work-related video call, police said. According to news outlets, the woman was the mother of the toddler who shot her in the head. Someone on the video called 911 after seeing the toddler in the background and hearing the noise. Almonte Springs police said in a news release. The woman, identified as 21-year-old Shamea Lynn, fell backwards and never returned to the video call, the person reported. Officers and paramedics did their best in rendering aid to Miss Lynn, but she was found with a fatal gunshot wound to the head, police stated. An adult in the apartment left the firearm unsecured, police said. Investigators were working with the Seminole County State Attorney's Office to determine whether charges will be filed. Keep your firearms locked up, people, especially if you have children. Just saying. Okay, next up, Scott Peterson retrial. Defense staging witch hunt, DA says. Out of Redwood City, California, KRON, witch hunt and red herring are phrases being used right now to describe the legal drama surrounding Scott Peterson, San Quentin State Prison's most high-profile inmate. A district attorney blasted Peterson's battle for a retrial, claiming it's turned into a witch hunt against a juror. Peterson's defense team says it has enough evidence to prove he did not murder his pregnant wife, clear his name, and get his conviction overturned. At the same time, Peterson's name is also being thrown around in an entirely separate yet equally notorious murder case, Kristen Smart, which we talked about last week. In court documents filed in San Mateo County Superior Court last week, Stanislaus County District Attorney Birgit Flatiger is blasting Peterson for going on a witch hunt against a woman who served on the jury that convicted him in 2004. Superior Court Judge Anne Christine Mazzullo ordered that an evidentiary hearing take place within the next few months to determine if juror Rochelle Nice, also known as Strawberry Shortcake, committed prejudicial misconduct. Peterson's defense attorney, Pat Harris, told KRON4 that Peterson will most likely appear in person inside the courtroom for the hearing. It will be the first time that Peterson is sitting in a courtroom in over a decade. His attorneys are determined to prove two things: that Nice was a stealth juror bent on being picked for the jury to convict Peterson, and that Peterson did not murder his wife. A group of burglars who broke into the neighbor's house across the street were the real killers, according to Peterson's defense team. The burglary happened on the same day that Lacey Peterson disappeared from her Modesto home on Christmas Eve 2002. Back in April of this year, Scott Peterson's defense team was granted more time to investigate Nice, who is accused of going rogue and committing juror misconduct during Peterson's 2004 murder trial. His defense attorney says that Nice lied to be picked for the juror because, before hearing any evidence, she wanted to help convict Peterson of murdering his wife. The judge gave Peterson's investigators more time to look into domestic violence committed against Nice in the early 2000s while she was pregnant. So Nice may have been biased toward the murder victim, Lacey Peterson, because Lacey was also pregnant when she was killed. He waited 16 years to have all this put out in public and the truth to be known, Harris told KRON4. Prosecutors do not want the upcoming hearing to be used as a stage for anything other than deciding if Nice intentionally lied during jury selection. The justice system cannot be permitted to upend jurors' lives simply because of a misunderstanding of terms by a layperson is twisted into the fiction of a malicious avengement of a personal vendetta, Flatiger wrote. Apparently, Nice exchanged dozens of prison letters with Peterson in which she expressed her sorrow for Lacey and baby Connor. Flatiger said the letters show how traumatized she was from serving on the jury. Judge Christine Mazzullo will either grant or deny Peterson a retrial based on what is presented at the evidentiary hearing. Okay, next up, Robert Durst admits he was lying when he denied writing Cadaver Note. He once said only Susan Berman's killer could have written it. This is from Law and Crime. Robert Durst, subject of the HBO documentary The Jinx, real estate heir and suspected serial killer, admitted that he lied for 2 decades about the so-called Cadaver Note that led Beverly Hills police to victim Susan Berman, 55. For years, he insisted it was not him and only the true killer could have penned it. Now, after failing to call a handwriting expert's analysis into question, Durst told jurors he was actually in Berman's home that fateful day in December 2000 and mailed the short message. The note got its name because it only contained the word cadaver and the address where authorities found Berman's remains. He did not merely tell a different story for years. He told producers of the HBO documentary The Jinx that only the real killer could have written the note and that this person took a big risk by doing so. Why did he lie about it for so many years? Because it is a difficult thing to believe, Durst said, referring to his claim that he wrote it, but he's not the killer. I mean, I have difficulty believing it myself. This case is a decades-long saga of bloodshed marked by his bizarre behavior through the years. Los Angeles County prosecutors assert he killed his wife, Kathleen McCormick Durst, in 1982 and recruited loyal friend Susan Berman to help cover it up, though no charges have been filed in Kathleen's death. But Robert Durst worried in the year 2000 that Berman might step forward with what she knew, so he shot and killed her execution style at her Beverly Hills home, authorities said. Durst moved to Galveston, Texas, where he shot and killed his neighbor, Morris Black. Now, he maintained self-defense and was acquitted for murder in 2003, though he was found guilty of dismembering Black's body. Investigators never found his head, which is where Durst shot Black. He visited Susan Berman at her home and found her dead, according to his new version of events. He called 911 from a payphone, but decided not to give his name. He also noted that he had a very distinctive voice. Instead, he would write the Cadaver Note, which, as previously reported, included a somewhat peculiar misspelling of the word Beverly. He said he had taken Percocet the day before because of a migraine. That tends to make you feel groggy and hungover the next day, he said, trying to explain why he did not remember certain things about that day. Durst actually told a somewhat similar story about dismembering Black. He cut up the man's body because no one would believe he killed him in self-defense. He testified in 2003, according to the Times. Now, in another more recent headline this week from NBC News, Robert Durst says he's lied under oath, but not during trial. So Robert Durst testified Tuesday that he would lie to get out of trouble and had lied during sworn testimony in the past, but said he has told the truth during 5 days of testimony at his murder trial. The comments during cross-examination, Los Angeles County Superior Court immediately threw his credibility into question and exposed the risk of putting a defendant on the witness stand. Deputy District Attorney John Lewin, who had been savoring the prospect of grilling Durst, got him to quickly acknowledge that there are some acts he'd never be honest about. Asked if he would admit to killing Susan Berman if he had done so, Durst said no. If you've said you've taken an oath to tell the truth, but you've also told us that you would lie if you needed to, Lewin asked, can you tell me how that would not destroy your credibility? Because what I'm saying is mostly true, Durst said. There are certain things I would lie about. Certain very important things, Durst said. The most important of those things now was whether he killed Susan Berman. He denied doing so, though he admitted sending police the cadaver note, as we just mentioned, which he admitted Monday. He's always lied about because it made him look culpable. This dude is such a douchebag. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it, but let's take a quick break and then we'll come back. And we're back. Next headline. Florida police solve 35-year-old murder cold case with advances in DNA technology. After 28-year-old Denise Marie Stafford was murdered in 1985 in Sarasota, Florida, the case went cold for decades despite investigators' best efforts at finding her killer. Now, thanks to advancements in DNA technology, the Sarasota Police Department announced Wednesday that they linked Joseph Magaletti, a convicted killer who died in prison in 2015, to the crime through DNA that was found on Stafford's pants. Everyone matters, or no one matters. Jeff Birdwell, who is assigned to the Sarasota Police Department's Criminal Investigation Division, said at a press conference Wednesday, citing author Michael Connolly, "Truly, that's the motto for us, is that regardless of how old these cases are, or regardless if the person who did it is alive, incarcerated, or dead, the answers are on the books. And if we put forth the effort and apply today's science, we've got a chance to make a difference." Birdwell took another look at the case in March 2020, sending multiple pieces of evidence to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and other agencies for testing. Last month, the FDLE told Birdwell that DNA taken from the pants Stafford was wearing were a match to Magaletti, who was a person of interest in the investigation decades ago but was never named a suspect. This is years of work by not only myself but sworn detectives and fellow civilians at Sarasota Police Department who have a passion to close these cases, Birdwell said Wednesday. Thanks to science and advancements in DNA testing and technology, all cold cases have a chance. We're not giving up on any cases, and this case being solved 35 years later is a testament to that. Magaletti was convicted of murder in another case in 1999, and Birdwell said that he is currently investigating his potential connection to another cold case in the area. Side note, the amazing things that they are doing with DNA these days, right? I mean, I bet there's a ton of murderers and rapists out there who are shaking in their boots because they know they're going to get caught, and hopefully soon. And speaking of DNA, our last headline for week 33 of 2021. Man gets 3 life sentences for killing 7-year-old girl and her parents in a 1984 hammer attack. A 2018 DNA match linked Alex Ewing to a January 15th, 1984 killing of Bruce, Deborah, and Melissa Bennett. A 64-year-old man learned this week that he will die behind prison bars after being sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences for the 1984 murders of a Colorado couple and their 7-year-old daughter, People magazine confirmed. All 3 of the victims were beaten to death with a claw hammer. Now, Ewing, who was 23 at the time, killed the 27-year-old husband and his 26-year-old wife, as well as their daughter, inside their Aurora home. The slain girl's younger sister, Vanessa Bennett, who was 3 at the time, survived the life-threatening injuries she sustained in the vicious beating. Ewing, who was convicted of the murders on August 6th, broke into the family's new home the night of the killings. Investigators said he also sexually assaulted Melissa before she died from being beaten. Arapahoe County District Judge Darren Valley spoke directly to Ewing before announcing the sentence. "I have seen all kinds of evil and wickedness. Nothing compares to the level of depravity that your actions show in this case. There is no punishment that is too harsh for you, and I will do everything in my power to make sure you never draw a free breath ever again." The Denver Channel reported that Ewing was also linked to the murder of Patricia Smith in Lakewood 6 days before the Bennetts were murdered, as well as the attack of Donna Holm in Aurora, who survived her injuries. The case originally went cold for decades. In 2002, the Colorado Bureau of investigators linked the DNA found at 2 of the 3 crime scenes, but it wasn't until July of 2018 that CBI investigators would discover a match just 1 day after Nevada prison officials put Ewing's DNA into the database. Ewing was in prison in Nevada on attempted murder and burglary charges at the time the match was discovered. Warrants were issued for Ewing in 2018, and though he fought extradition to Colorado, the Nevada Supreme Court ultimately denied his motion in February 2020, and he was extradited soon after. Ewing still faces first-degree murder charges for the murder of Smith, and he is due in court for that case in mid-September. Trial is slated to start October 18th. And that is your wrap-up for True Crime Headlines for week 33 of 2021. Thank you for listening. If you can all do me a favor and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening and rate and review the show, that really helps me branch out and reach a wider audience, considering this is a brand new show and we're just getting started. If you'd like to support the show and get a bunch of extra content from True Crime Headlines and also our sister show, Paradise After Dark podcast, go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. There you will get our spinoff show, Analyze This. We do off-topic and uncut and early and ad-free episodes of True Crime Headlines and Paradise After Dark. And thank you for listening to True Crime Headlines. I will talk at you next Friday. Have a good week, everyone.